All right, I'm so happy to start this web series. I've got a blog, which you've probably found or been to, and I get a lot of questions about the La Paz process. So I've already put down in blog posts, a lot of information, but I think sometimes it's better to actually see somebody and hear somebody. That's the kind of learner I am. So I thought that since we've got that big show in Houston of all the quilts, that this would be a great time to start a series and try to answer as many questions as I can. And a lot of this is from the Facebook page, and we already have that really giant community that has been fabulous for me. I don't think I could have finished my quilt if it wasn't for the Facebook group. So my job here now with this web series is really to just kind of take that to another level and be as helpful as possible. And in the process, I hope that you'll send questions as well that I can answer on the blog series. So I'd like to talk about color and getting started. A lot of you have already started, so this may not be useful information. It might be, I'm not sure, but you can always learn something. But some of you are on the fence. Maybe you've just gotten all your papers in the book and need a little help getting started and don't know what to choose for fabric or how much to get. So this is a great tutorial for you. And that's big because this quilt is going to take forever and you got to love it. If you start with fabrics that you don't like, you just don't want to pick it up. So whatever fabrics you are using, make sure that you do love those because it's something you're going to be with for a long time. Now, I'm a little bit fanatical about color. I consider myself a colorist. And I have had this bar mitzvah save the date card for, well, let's see, 2005. So 11 years. And I love this combination. So I have kept it, and I have a file actually of things from magazines or images on the computer that I've kept as color inspiration. So I always knew that this was something I wanted to work with. So when I decided to do the La Paz, I pulled out my little file and I said, you know what? I'm going to use this combination. So that's what I did. I kept my color combination pretty limited. I used these 4 colors and I got a lot of low volume, not low volume, but just not a lot of pattern, but maybe some background colors. But I only used these colors. I didn't use yellow, red, or blue. So these are all secondary colors on the color wheel. I also ended up using some black and white to kind of perk up the colors a little bit. But it made it pretty easy because sometimes I think when you have too much choice, you don't know where to go and it gets overwhelming. So if you are stuck on color, try to limit your combination and ahead of time kind of give yourself a little bit of just limitation, I think helps. Another tip that I would like to share is before you start, again, this is the getting started part of the web series. Just take a look at the rosettes, and I'm sure you've done that on the Facebook group, and you see, how things are coming together. Keep in mind when you're buying fabric, and people ask all the time, how much fabric do I need? Well, that's really almost impossible to answer because it depends on what you're going to do. Are you going to fussy cut every little shape? Are you just going to fussy cut pentagons? Are you just going to fussy cut every once in a while? Because that makes a difference. And it depends on the repeat of the pattern. If you get something that's bilaterally symmetrical and it has a lot of images that are the same, you can, and the repeat is small, then it's really easy to use less fabric to get a fussy cut out of that. But some fabrics like Anna Maria Horner, which I absolutely love, don't get me wrong, a lot of her patterns are really big. And you need like 2 yards to fussy cut pentagons out of. So that's a little bit tricky. So try to keep small scale patterns or look at the repeat in the pattern. because keep in mind, for the little small rosettes, you need 10 pentagons to make a row. So you want them all 10 to be identical. Or maybe you can't get 10 of that shape in the amount of fabric you have. So then maybe you're going to do 5 in one image and 5 in another image. So you go 5 and 5 with the pentagons. But you have to keep in mind the fussy cutting and the repeat of the pattern. Some people are really creative, which I love, and I could never do, is just do a random pattern. They fussy cut, but not so that it matched. And each pentagon, for instance, was different, and it turned out great. So that is another tip about buying fabric. If you really love something, a pattern, and you see that there's a lot of possibilities in that pattern, buy a yard or two. I also feel like the pentagons are the perfect place to fussy cut, and they're the biggest shape. The stars, I have fussy cut some of those darn stars, and I don't know if it's worth it, to be honest. Now I want to talk about the repeat. So here's a Heather Ross, and this fits pretty nicely on the pentagon, and you can see it's repeated pretty regularly. So this is a really easy fabric to use. You don't need a lot of it. Here's another one, that Sarah Watt with the sloth. It's good. It's just, it's good because there's a lot of images to repeat. So I thought that was a great fussy cut. Here's a Tula Pink. You know, there's a lot of nice little images, and it's bilateral, so you can go mirror image on it. The ponies, they seem a little big, but you can do it in 2 pentagons. This is one of her fabrics that works well. Here's another one. Again, I'm just kind of talking about repeats, for instance. You can see I've already cut the pentagon out of here. I was able to find quite a lot. So it's hard to know how much fabric to have, but just keep in mind you have 10 of these shapes. And again, I'm really kind of talking about the pentagon row. These are pretty tiny, so it's hard to get a good repeat. The diamonds are good. They're big enough. This was kind of that random thing. There actually is a few that are repeating, but for the most part, they're all different. You can see what I've done here with these these are all identical. And then of course it makes a nice great pattern. So really when you're buying fabric, I think about the bigger shapes that you're gonna fussy cut, because that'll dictate how much fabric you need. So if you, for instance, wanted to just use these orange deers, they don't show up very often. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 in a quarter of a yard, and I need 10. So I'd almost need 3/4 of a yard to just get 10 of these orange deers. So again, when you're talking about how much fabric you need, that's what you have to think about. So instead of buying a lot of fabric, I just used the different deers so that I didn't have to, waste a lot of fabric. But there's a lot of other fun things to fussy cut in here, so I didn't mind that. We've just talked about 10 shapes, 10 pentagons for a row, and that's great for the small rosette. That's all you need. But you're also going to have to keep in mind when you're buying fabric that you've got 4 large rosettes, and in those 4 large you end up with a pentagon row that uses 20 shapes. So you have 4 of those, and then 20 again depending on what you do. I don't want to complicate anything, but if you're trying to keep this row all the same, now you need 20 of those images. So that's important to think about. So if you've got 4 rosettes that are large, and you have this row and this row that are going to use 20. So 4 rosettes times 2, so you need, that's 8 chances basically to do a 20 row So you might find something you really like that maybe you wanted to use the orange deer that I just showed you. So you would need a lot of yardage if you just wanted the orange deer 20 times. But I think rather than when you're first starting out to get too tied into the rosettes, my suggestion is just do a bunch of small ones that use the 10 pentagons. That's really the easiest. You're going to get your feet wet. You're going to see how the pieces come together, how they make different shapes. But if you're shopping and you fall in love with the fabric, buy a yard or two. You'll be happy you did. And I'm going to throw one more thing out there about choosing fabrics and getting started is do look through the Facebook group and see what you want to do with those little tiny stars. Some people keep them all the same color, and I think that is a great way to start. If you're uncertain about color and you're struggling, make it easy on yourself and just do the stars all one color. And again, that would be purchasing fabric. Just get, a fair amount of that. And some people just do the stars all different colors, but it does make it a little trickier because you are having to match that again and deal with the edges meeting up with other edges. So it complicates things a little bit. So if you're up for the challenge, make all the stars different colors. If you want to simplify your life, keep them the same. All right, I hope that's a good start for those of you who have been on the fence kind of waiting and worried about your fabric choices. Comment on the blog so that we can all see it and I can answer those for you. Thanks for watching.